I've never expected I would survive when I was there. And for me, the film was a very clear way for me to tell that. And everyone who watched the film can totally like understand why I was thinking or why I would think today, like I should not be here now.
What does it mean to live in exile, displaced from everything you have ever known? Starting your life from scratch in a foreign place, armed with a survival instinct and the only items you could carry with you when you left home. 3 years ago, a rare and illuminating documentary for Sema showed the world the reality and heartbreak Syrians endured in deciding whether to remain in the war zone of their neighborhoods or leave towards an uncertain future. The film was nominated for an Oscar and won Best Documentary at the Emmys and BAFTAs. Its filmmaker and protagonist, Waad al-Kateab, has since traveled around the world speaking on behalf of the Syrian people, those displaced and those still left behind. I sat down with Waad at the P21 Gallery in London, where her new exhibit, We Dared to Dream, opened. That exhibit showcases ordinary household items kept by Waad and other Syrian refugees when they left their homes, items that have now been imbued with new and profound meaning. Waad al-Kateab, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
It has been 3 years since we last spoke. The last time was following the release of your groundbreaking film for Sema. It has since won a number of awards. It has gone to a number of countries around the world. It has been seen by a large group of people. How do you feel 3 years later, looking back at that story and the kind of story you were hoping to tell and share with the world?
So, to be honest, like as time goes, I feel more like how important this film was to go out and how important for me to tell the story. Not just my personal story, but the story of Aleppo, the story of the displacement. And just being here today, looking at what is around us, which we're going to talk about soon, it just gives me so much relief that I know that I've survived. I know that we lost a lot, but we still own our narrative. We still can tell our story and make people aware of what happened and what's still happening until now.
When you were starting to work on this film, one of the things that you were told is that people were tired of hearing about Syrians and the Syrian story, and that everybody had already heard and seen what they needed to see. Now, 3 years later, there is a wave of films that are coming out now. There's a film that's number one on Netflix that is talking about the refugee crisis. Do you feel, how do you feel about that statement now, and how do you feel about these stories that are coming out?
I think I understand where that statement comes from. And as I'm living here more and more, I can more understand how people could be very overwhelmed of what they are seeing on the news or what they're feeling, overwhelmed with their own lives and the crisis around the very normal details of any individual life outside. But I think also what they were tired of is like the death, the bombing, the same kind of numbers they kind of hear or see, but without having any connection to these people or to these like pictures. And I think what this film had was more like personal connection. People can see themselves in this like story. They can understand more that we're people like them. We have lives, we have dreams, we had history, we had life, and we were just trying to defend our basic rights of freedom and dignity. And I think also like people, when they look about so many stories from outside, it seems like strange and cold and far away. And then when you have a chance to live like even for 1 hour and a half, understanding everything happening in our minds, in our hearts, in our life, in our decisions, let's make so much big difference, that you can relate, you can connect. And now after Ukraine and what happened, unfortunately, people has more connection now. People start to feel that this is not just about Syria. This is not just about one country in the Middle East. This is about criminals, and these criminals can commit these crimes anywhere around the world. And that's not about Syria or Ukraine. It's about our rights as a human being to be able to live our life as we want, in freedom, in safety, in simple, basic, like right, to choose the best for our children, for ourselves.
What was the reaction that you received from audiences, but also from some of the international bodies that you took the film to screen? What were people's impressions of the film, and what did they share with you?
So to be honest, like as Waad, who lived through all of this, I had so much like anger and frustration with all these like big organizations, bodies of like what they call themselves, like humanitarian organizations, especially the ones that they are like governors, like they are responsible for the whole world as they present themselves. And part of like the displacement of Aleppo, which we call it forced displaced, like we call ourselves forced displaced people. People sometimes refer to Aleppo and what happened as evacuation. And for me, like the very basic simple difference, evacuation, it looks like it's a volcano, it's like earthquake. While like forced displacement is like something happened as an act by someone, some power. And that was like the Syrian regime and Russia. And even this organization who describe themselves as like neutral organization, or like, they are not political at all. They, with their like neutrality, they kind of helping the regime and Russia to amplify their plans. They are not standing with the people. They're not actually neutral. For this, like when I went out, I had so much like things I had to face, to explain to people like, no, not congratulations, you went out of Aleppo. It was like heartbreaking for us. It wasn't something we wanted to do. And this is not like the UN or whatever body we can call it. They saved the people of Aleppo when they did this. They helped Russia to amplify their like plan, because the simple thing they have to do if they have to take responsibility was to keep us in our city, in our homes, and protect us, not take us out and displace us. So I had so much like things to do, over the years, just to simply like re-identify the words that people use when they talk about Aleppo and what they call it civil war, while there's Russia and Iran and so many other countries involved, so it can't be civil war, it's like you can call it war if it's fine, but for us it was always revolution. Then it turned into war, but it's not definitely civil war, which so many statements of big organization they used, So like, there's so many battles around the years, and I think the main thing I've seen when these people like have seen the film, so we showed the film in so many places around the world, including like the Parliament in the UK, the Congress in the US, and the UN, like in different missions, and the main reaction I felt like I had, and clearly was something like they used to see this as numbers, as paper. Like they've never went and spent time with people. Sometimes they do missions, but it's not really living with people. They don't understand our perspective. And I think that was the main like thing I felt. Like it really changed their perspective about who we are as people. And I think that was very important.
I think that's one of the things that your film captures so clearly, is that idea that of the decisions that are made on people on the ground, how difficult it is for people to actually take the step in order to leave their homes, and that for a large group of people, it is the last thing that they will ever try, and they will do the impossible to try and retain a sense of normalcy in their life up until the point where they have to leave.
Yeah, and we did the impossible. We had no choice. The choice was you leave or you will die. Like there was no other options. So it's not even an option. We can't call it an option. And that's just now looking back at this. It's been now like years, like it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not even 5 years. Since 2016, like December, we're now 2022. So all this time, I think I can deal with everything happened in terms of trauma in my life, in everything I've seen of people being killed, kids being like literally on the edge of being in like alive or not, and so many things. But the one thing I can't deal with until now is the time when I heard like we're leaving, and the time I realized we're not there anymore. And that's, I think, there's so many crimes we've witnessed. For me, the displacement is like one of the biggest ones. What messages are you sending to us, to your people, and to your children? What will the next conflict look like if impunity persists? It's okay to torture people. It's okay to kill children. It's okay to bomb hospitals. What sort of legacy are you leaving behind for the next generation?
You spoke recently at the UN Security Council.
Yeah.
And you said quite a powerful statement in which you said that the UN Security Council had essentially been spectator to the suffering of Syrian people. In what ways do you think the UN as a body, with the UN Security Council in particular, failed to prevent what has happened in Syria?
Yeah, when we talk about the UN Security Council, and one of them, like permanent member, are Russia.
Of course.
So how can they not be spectator? You know, like, and being spectator, that doesn't mean they have nothing to do. They are allowing Russia to do what they are doing, and that's for me like very clear, simple, like explanation. You know, I went there and I had so many questions in my mind before I go, and why I have to go. You know, like. There's no reason, like nothing will be changed after this, and I know this, but I decided to go there to tell the message for the Syrian people, not for the people who are sitting in that place, because I know that so many of them maybe are really good people, but they have nothing in their power. It's more about the 5 permanent countries who are in the Security Council, and even some of these countries, I know they are really good. I know they've tried so much to do this, but the system is wrong, you know? When you have to take permission from Russia to like persecute Russia, like this is not right, you know, like simply not right. So I just wanted to go to tell like the world, the Syrian people, that I was not honored to be there because I was there. I was honored that I'm one of the Syrian people who stood out, who asked for dignity, for freedom, and who still think like we still can fight, even if we're now outside.
And what happens in these places when you go and you say a statement like that in front of a lot of foreign dignitaries, ambassadors? What do people come and tell you afterwards? And I mean, does it sound convincing to you?
I think there are so many good people in this world, but I think the bad people has much more power. And to be honest, like when I was there, when I was saying my words, and I was not thinking about anyone inside that room. I was just thinking of the Syrian people who are across the whole world, you know, when they're gonna hear just someone of them, you know, like someone who has their voice, or someone who wants to say the things that they always wanted to say, but there was no way for us to say this. Because even for us as like activists, we had to go to so many places. I think we didn't have so much hope in each place we've been to. And I'm talking about on behalf of me and other people who I've met through this like 3 years of distributing the film and going out and talking. We always like had so much disappointment even before we go. But there was always like slightly line or like something of hope, you know, which always we might think like maybe this is the time when something will change, you know, and there's this conflict always, which I'm not ever ready to explain because, you know, like you have this big responsibility that you should be there and you should say something, even if you know this is not going to change anything. But you're not going to leave it for them, you know? You're not going to leave this narrative to be written by Russia or the regime or anyone would be there who not representing the Syrian people. But for me, you know, like, again, I was just thinking of the Syrian people. I just wanted to say something I always felt, you know, when I was as an audience. And I think I was able to do this. I know this might not make anyone in that room happy, but I think that everyone as a Syrian would be totally like feeling something.
It's a big weight for you to be able to carry as an individual, and I know you're not going through this alone, and there are people that are working with you. There's your husband. Both of you have been very vocal, but it's still a lot of weight and a responsibility that you know, for a couple of years, you, your husband, your daughter were some of the first people that the Western world really was able to kind of identify with what was happening in Syria. And I just wonder, you know, you are then tasked with trying to educate the entire world about what's happening in this conflict and what needs to be done and what you know, millions of refugees think and care about and feel. How do you weigh that out in your mind of what you as Waad can do and what is much bigger than you as an individual?
I mean, I think I have very like clear vision in my head that I don't expect any like result, you know, or I hope to be, of course, but I understand that this is very complicated and this is out of what I could even like handle as individual. But also at the same time, I think I've never expected I would survive when I was there. And for me, the film was a very clear way for me to tell that. And everyone who watched the film can totally like understand why I was thinking or why I would think today, like I should not be here now. But also at the same time, I know that there's so many people didn't make it out. I have very, very, very personal and like close friends who they are buried in Syria. And I also, I have so many friends who they survived, like physically, mentally they are not. And I know also that at any second this could be me. I think the responsibility of just keep going, I wish I can let it go, you know? I wish I can just like turn my back and just be normal, like in normal situation and just try to forget about this. But I don't think I want, and I don't think I will be able to. And just for me, like to keep this memory happening in any possible way, whether it's with someone I sit down next to in the bus, and for any conversation, I'm from Syria, and I intended to say this, you know, I intended to bring, if they said like, oh, poor Syria, sorry, I was like, yeah, we have a very like evil president. I always just trying, you know, to like make the story out in any possible way, or whether I was in the UN Security Council where I can really like reach millions of people. I just feel like, you know, the only way for me to recognize that I survived is like to tell the story and to make this out. And I know that so many people might not be able to do this, so I feel like I'm doing this not just about me. And for me, more than anything else, I have 2 daughters. I want them to grow up and understand where we come from, why we left, and why we want to go back. And I think that's like, you know, the essential thing I have seen in my head.
It's been 6 years since you left.
Yeah.
And you've settled in the United Kingdom. You are restarting a new life. You have 2 daughters now, and Sama, she's how old now? She's 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
So she's in school. Yeah. So there's a sense of normalcy about your life now that wasn't there obviously when you left.
Yeah.
And then you also talked about the idea that, you know, you and others who have left leave with a lot of trauma and a lot of these things that don't just settle down or go away. What does that look like in your life in order to try and create a sense of normalcy for your children as well, but for your own self? And
yeah.
What does that look like?
So, I mean, it's very messy, I would say, and very random, and trying to be very like reasonable mom, you know, at sometimes where I have like, okay, I'm going to protect them now. And then next 5 minutes, I would have deeply with very like wrong conversation with them. I mean, I'm trying my best, of course, to keep them safe and protected and just in this normal life here, but also I'm too much like on the other way as well. I want them to know everything, not just about Syria, about the world. I want them to understand that, like, maybe as individuals, we can't change the world, but we have responsibility in this. They're coming today, and they will see everything here, which they can recognize definitely. But also, like, I think, you know, they carry this trauma, whether I like this or not. There is something in their maybe DNA, in their head, something they can see in our face, in our conversation at home between me and Hamza. And I don't know what is right and what is wrong. I hope I'm doing the right thing for them, but I know it's not, maybe it will never be normal. And I don't know, I understand, like I have some conflict now, about what should I do to make things right for them, because at the end it's not their,
Their burden?
Yeah, it's not their burden. They have to have like safe life. I'm trying my best. I hope it's right.
Yeah, because I imagine there's a part of you that would want them to have a normal life and not be burdened by any of that stuff, and there's another part of you that wants them to understand where they've come from and to hold on to that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's only about where they come from. So one very, very short story, like England was playing against Iran in the World Cup, and Sama went with me to like 2 or 3 protests for Iran. And the day when she came back from that match, she was like, I almost cried when the 6th goal was scored by England. And I was like, I didn't really notice what she would think about this. So I was like, why? She was like, because you remember this girl who was killed because she didn't want to wear a scarf. I thought if Iran won, her family, her neighbors would be happy. So I wanted Iran to win. I was like, I was really happy and in tears and very complicated feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, Mama, that's really good, but England's still your country, so you have to be happy as well. And she was very yeah, I know this is my country, but that's war, that's more important.
Wow.
And I think even now when I'm remembering this, I'm just so, I don't know, proud, maybe a word, and so worried at the same time, because the protest where we went was 2-3 months before the match. So it was not something we talked about the day before or something.
But it stayed with her, it had an impact on her.
Yeah, and I feel again, proud and worried at the same time.
I heard you say something recently, which caught me by surprise because I didn't know that Waad al-Kateab is not your real name.
Yeah.
What is that story about? Where did that name come from, and why? When did you decide that you needed a different name?
So Hamza al-Khatib is not his name as well, and I can call you 50 other friends who we call them until now something, and they are not. That's not their names. I think this came very early in the protests when we had to coordinate with each other and be responsible for each other's safety. So we were on Facebook or on Skype on groups when we can't log in or be in the group with our real names, because if anyone was arrested from this group and they were able to access that Facebook group or WhatsApp group, there was no WhatsApp at that time, but and there was other ways of that, and Skype groups, they will just be able to identify all the other people who are protesting. So one of the main rules we had to make was everyone should introduce themselves in different name. And at that time, I named myself Sky River Free, River from Revolution and Free from Freedom. And everyone used to call me Sky, which is Sama. That's why Sama, part of her name later. And Hamza at that time, there was one boy who was killed. He was 9 years old from Dara. His name was Hamza al-Khatib. And he was a very big symbol in the revolution. And maybe one of the main reasons why Syria protests across the other cities. So Hamza tried that name on Facebook as another name, and it worked. So he stuck with the name. And then when we met later and we were in the hospital, and when we get married, I chose Waad as. So Waad is my first name, which is the real name. But I used to tell people it's not my name. So people definitely honestly, they kind of believe that, because I would never dare to put my real name in this. And then the surname got to took it from Hamza. And actually, everyone in that hospital, we were just under al-Khateab name because it became like the hospital, like surname.
Yeah.
So there was like another 15 people from the same family. And across Syria, from other cities, there was a lot of people who named themselves like from al-Khateab family to remember Hamza al-Khateab, yeah.
That's beautiful because, in the Arab world, you have big family names and you have people from different countries. And so I wonder if this is the beginning of a new family.
It's definitely, I remember in the early days, like first year or second year, when on my Facebook, they gave you like 10 people, their birthday is today or like something. So two things happened. So many people became from the family SY, which is coming from Syria. And then other people, all the people changed their date of birth to be 15th of March, which is the beginning of the protest in Syria. So I have like 13,000 people birthday on 15th of March, and none of them is really.
A lot of birthday parties to attend.
So a lot of things changed after the revolution. And I think even now, like, I don't use even Hamza's real name at home, I call him Hamza until now. And it's just something I think give us so much like good memory about how things changed and how things we want it to be like now.
I wonder if that change of name in some way signifies a change of identity for you before and after the...
No, definitely, yes. And I think it's a whole feeling my generation has, or like every generation from Syria who was like linking their life to 2011. It's definitely like changed a lot of... the main thing, I think, our belonging to Syria and our longing to Syria, because I think before 2011, I've never felt I'm Syrian. That doesn't mean anything for me. Like, I can just leave to any country and start my life over there, and I will never even want to go back or wish to go back. And the revolution made like this very different.
Let's talk about this exhibit, this area that we're standing in right now. Can you describe to us what it is and what all of the different items that are filling it and all their stories?
So we're sitting in the middle of the first floor, where we're surrounded by memories and stories of people who are still alive, and some of them still alive. We have some personal items we were able to get out with us. Part of my, like, just personal things, like my hat, which I used to wear the whole years of Aleppo. My camera, which I filmed most of for summer with. And I turned it off the day when we left, never turned it on again, never cleaned it. And I just wanted to stay as it was. My wedding flowers, the ones that...
Which featured in the film?
Yes, and which I really hate at that time because it's not like natural flowers, It's just like something my cousin made with her own hands for her wedding. And then I was able to get that after, and I did my own like touch on that. And at that time I was like, I really want natural flowers. It was really hard to get in Aleppo. And then I'm thinking of this now as the best thing I've ever had, because if I have any like natural flower, it won't stay for a long time. And this is last forever now, so I have really good thing now. We have one corner where we have like art, where Salim, who was our neighbor and our friend from Aleppo, he used to paint and draw things on the walls of Aleppo. Part of that was really great and good, just fun work to do and to give people more hope and joy, and others was to deliver messages to the people outside of Aleppo. So we decided that each year we're going to do one wall, same one he did before in Aleppo. He's going to do it as a live art while the exhibition is happening. He's very fast. He finished that in the first day.
Wow, that's really impressive.
And then we have some personal items for Afra, my friend who was a teacher in a school in Aleppo. She has the keys of the school and the stamp, which she used to use for the kids' certificate, some pictures of that school and what activity they were doing with the kids. She has also some soil she got from the park, who turned later to be like cemetery. And there's 6 pictures of young people, friends who died before we leave, and their graves still until now there. There's also a picture of the park from high place. Then we have some personal items of Hamza, my husband, the glasses that he used to wear in Aleppo, which was broken, and he had to use it anyway because there was no place in the last days of Aleppo to fix it, and he couldn't just live without it because he can't really see. He has the stethoscope, which he got from a doctor early in 2012, and he used that for a long time, and he left it with doctors inside Syria after we left Aleppo, in the new hospital when they started that, and then he got it back from one of the doctors saying that there's not really need for this now, and I think you would love to have it.
The thing that strikes me about a lot of these items is that they're very ordinary items.
Yeah.
They're the kind of items that you'd have in your house and you would never think twice about.
Yeah, you will throw it definitely, like at some point, yeah.
But then what kind of meanings do these items take after you've gone through a process of displacement, after you've been through an experience and been through war? Do they take on a different meaning?
I think it's really hard to explain this because they are the only home we have now. We can't go back. We can't see anything we used to see. We can't even be in the street when we used to grow up. We don't have homes or we had, but we can't even get there. So I think that's for us what remains of Syria. And it's interesting because, sometimes you think about stuff, I don't know why I got this, or I don't know how bad or good this means to me, but then when you have nothing else, it became very valuable. There are some items from people who maybe they didn't feel it's important, or when the moment they hold on into this, they thought this is everything I own now. And in both ways, after you lose your country, after you lose your future and your dreams and your home, you think this is at least important for me. But then when you share it with people and you feel how people can connect to this, how much they can look at around them and feel okay, now I can look at my life and see how important is everything maybe.
There are an estimated, more than 13 million Syrians that have been displaced by the war, internally and externally. More than 6.5 million that have been displaced externally. Stories such as yours, such as your friends, your family. And it has been a number of years now since you've been out of Syria. And I wonder what the future looks like for these millions of people that have had to uproot their lives and go elsewhere and think about starting over. What does their life look like now?
It's really depends on each one's ability, to integrate in the new community and try to open up. And I think that's a big responsibility and sometimes even a big ask for so many people. It's so hard because at some point you want to keep going, and you want to keep going not just about being able to live and eat and drink. It's just to have your own community and your life, your future, and you start to create memories in these places, and this has become something really like important and valuable as well. But also, you don't want to forget, and you want to like look back at what happened and see that something changed. I think this is very, very like a conflict would be in everyone like head. We have to wake up every day and focus on this like daily life here, and look back at Syria and see like people, at least they're not suffering anymore, which is not the situation now, unfortunately.
I want to end with you this conversation on this idea of hope.
Yeah.
And it was something that we spoke about 3 years ago when we spoke. And in your film, you explain that the reason that you named your first daughter Sema was because the sky has a connotation of hope.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, all of these years on, where you are standing today, with you, your family, and the Syrians that are in your position, what does hope look like for you in the future?
The hope is definitely for me to be able to go back to my home. I mean, it's been 6 years, and I still maybe see this every single day. I want to go back. I want to be able to go back. I want to choose if I want to go back or not. I don't want to have any fears, you know, from people around me, from my country. And I think what my hope is mainly is like with justice. I want to see justice. I want to have justice. I want to be part of that process. And I really hope, like, I don't know when this would happen, but I see this happening. And if I couldn't see that, at least I want my daughters to see that.
But you believe it will happen one day?
I do believe. That's why I'm still trying to do something here.
Waad al-Kateab, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I say something last thing?
Yes, of course, please.
There's an Egyptian guy who said, there's people who needs hope. If you don't have it, leave it to them. So even sometimes when I don't have that hope, I understand that so many people needs that. So I don't have the right to say I don't have hope.